American independence couldn't have been won without three men: George Washington, who was the army commander; Benjamin Franklin, who convinced the France to help America; and Robert Morris, the financier of the Revolution.
Robert Morris.
Robert Morris.
Robert Morris.
Robert Morris was born on January 31st, 1734, in Liverpool, Great Britain, to a family of merchants doing business with colonial America. Unfortunately, Robert lost his mother at the young age of 2, leaving only his father to tend to him. Since his father's business was booming, the two of them decided to relocate to Pennsylvania to be more central to their merchant operations. At the age of 13, Robert finally began his education in Philadelphia. But young Robert was too quick for his teacher, and one day while he was talking with his father about his teacher, he declared to his father, "Sir, I have learned all that he can teach me." In 1750, Robert Morris's father, Robert Morris Sr., put on a dinner party on board one of the company's ships. As he left the ship in a small boat, a farewell salute was fired from the ship, and wadding from the shop burst through the side of the boat, severely injuring him. And as a result of that accident, he died of blood poisoning on July 12, 1750, leaving young Robert an orphan at the age of 15 years old. He was soon apprenticed to the counting room of Charles Willing at the age of 16. 2 years later, his employer died, and Morris entered into a partnership with the gentleman's son. In the next 39 years, that business flourished, and Robert Morris's wealth and his reputation were well secured. Being an importer, his business was hard hit by the Stamp Act, and Robert led the street protest against it. Robert and his partner engaged in the movements against the British rule. Their company brought in weaponry and powder for the militia, along with information about English troop movements. Robert Morris married Mary White on March 2nd, 1769, and they had 7 children. After being elected to the Continental Congress in 1775, Robert found himself on many committees to raise money and provisions for the Continental Army. Early in 1776, he was given authority to negotiate bills of exchange and to solicit money by other means for the operations of the war. On the 4th of July, 1776, Robert Morris would sign the Declaration of Independence at the age of 44. He said at that time that it was the duty of every individual to act his part in whatever station his country may call him to in hours of difficulty, danger, and even distress. Well, from that moment forward until peace was finally achieved in 1783, Morris performed the services in support of the war. Robert Morris was one of only 2 founding fathers to have signed all 3 major founding American documents: the Declaration of Independence, the Articles of Confederation, and the U.S. Constitution. In late 1776, with the Continental Army in the state of severe deprivation because of the shortage of capital and the failure of several of the colonies in paying for the war, Morris received a letter from General George Washington needing $10,000. Morris knew of no one who possessed the required money or who would be willing to even lend it. Well, that evening, as he was returning back home, he met with an honest Quaker with whom he had been acquainted. The Quaker asked of the news, and Mr. Morris told him of this letter. The Quaker friend said, "Sir, you must let me have it. My note and my honor will be your only security. You shall have it." The money was soon sent to Washington, who provisioned his desperate troops, who went on to win the Battle of Trenton. In 1777, Morris returned to Congress and signed the country's first constitution, the Articles of Confederation. Morris retired from Congress in 1778 and rejoined the Pennsylvania Assembly. While in that body, he worked to establish the checks and balances and to protect minority rights. The Continental Congress called Morris to service again in 1781, appointing him as the Superintendent of Finance, an office then for the first time established. This appointment was unanimous. He devised a plan for a national bank whose principal object was to supply the army with provisions, and submitted it to the Congress. It was approved and became the Bank of North America, an institution that brought stability to the colonial economy, facilitated continued finance of the war effort, and would ultimately establish the credit of the United States with the nations of Europe. Morris was immediately appointed as finance agent, meaning the Secretary of Treasury, of the United States in order to direct the oppositions of this brand new bank. Following the war, he served in the Pennsylvania legislature and was also a delegate to the Constitutional Convention in 1787, and thereafter an advocate for our brand new Constitution. He was then sent as a senator for Pennsylvania when that Constitution was ratified. In 1789, President George Washington appointed Morris Secretary of Treasury, but he declined the office and suggested that Alexander Hamilton take the position instead. Morris completed his office as senator, and then he retired from public service. He never recovered the wealth that he once enjoyed before the Revolution. What was left of the fortune was soon lost to land speculation in the western part of New York State. Robert died of asthma on May 8, 1806. Reverend Charles Augustus Goodrich writes of Robert Morris, "From the foregoing short statement, we may have some idea of the nature and the magnitude of service rendered by Mr. Morris to the United States. It may be truly said that few men acted a more conspicuous or useful part. And when we recollect that it was by his exertions and his talents that the United States were so often relieved from their difficulties at times of great depression and pecuniary distress, an estimate may be formed of the weight of obligations due to him from the people of the present day." Robert Morris was a genius in the world of finance. Even today, we still use many of the things that he put into place. Wow, I wish and I hope that I can take care of my money as well as he took care of his. The end.